Now let's look at the MCQs. I mean, basically when you say MCQs, you are little comfortable with it, as you have to select the relevant answer most of the time. However, it's not something that you cannot take softly, because they have allocated 20 marks, substantial marks allocated under this area as well. And this is an area where you can easily score marks also, because yes, you have been given 4 answers. At the same time, if you are not sure about any answer given, you can most of the time you can refer to the Companies Act and see whether this statement is correct or not. But don't spend much time answering these questions, because there are other 2 sections also you have to answer, where they allocate 80 marks altogether. However, without spending much time, you should be able to get the answers to these questions. So here all questions are compulsory and 20 marks allocated. The important part is here, they have allocated 36 minutes for this. So make sure that you answer within half an hour. Forget about additional 6 minutes. Always see whether you answer these 10 questions within half an hour, even though you complete or not. After half an hour, you go to section 2 and section 3 and try to finish those questions, because those are substantial questions where they allocate most of the marks. So that is something that you guys need to remember, right? Okay. Right, so let's look at the first question now. Let's look at the first question. From the option given below, select the most accurate one to filling the blanks the given sentence. So you have to just fill in the blanks here. A company is permitted by law to enter into contracts before its incorporation. What do we call them? We call them pre-incorporation contracts. Company is permitted by law to enter into contracts before its incorporation. We call it pre-incorporation contracts. Now, the pre-incorporation contracts in Sri Lanka is little different and quite significant when it comes to the English law, UK company law. Because we have separate chapter allocated for pre-incorporation contracts in Sri Lanka. If a contract has been entered into prior to the incorporation of the company, once a company is incorporated, the company has an obligation to ratify the contract. Right? Anyway, let's see. A company is permitted by law to enter into contracts before its incorporation in relation to obtaining a listing in the Colombo Stock Exchange, purchasing a land through its promoters, the securing of bank loans which do not require ratification once the company is incorporated, the sale of assets by its directors. So here you go to pages 34 and 35 of your study text. There you will be able to find the answer. This area, as I mentioned, from pre-incorporation contracts. So normally the requirement is that once the company is incorporated, you have to ratify the contract. You have to ratify it. Therefore, if you look at C, that cannot be the correct answer. Because under pre-incorporation contracts, there is a requirement to ratify any contract that you have entered before incorporation. If you have entered into some contract on behalf of the company, once the company is incorporated, it must be ratified. Therefore, C cannot be the answer. And the sale of assets by its directors that is the sale of assets by its directors. That's nothing to do with the company obtaining a listing in the Colombo Stock Exchange. Before incorporating, can you obtain a listing in the Colombo Stock Exchange? No, it has to be an incorporated company with a history. So you cannot obtain a listing in the Colombo Stock Exchange before incorporating the company. So a company is permitted by law to enter into contracts before its incorporation in relation to, obviously, purchasing a land through its promoters. Obviously, that is possible. Through promoters, the company can purchase a land before its incorporation. Once the company is incorporated, the company will have to ratify the contract and the company will be responsible under that contract afterwards, not the promoters. So that is how the pre-incorporation contracts work in Sri Lanka. Promoters are permitted to act on behalf of the company, purchase the land, but once the company is incorporated, the company has the obligation to ratify the contract done by the promoters and take or assume personal responsibility under the contract and to release the promoters from the contract. So that is how it works. So the answer is B. The answer is B here. Then let's look at the next question. Right. The following statements are relating to the listing of a company's securities in Divisary Board. Divisary Board of the Colombo Stock Exchange. There are different types of boards maintained at the Colombo Stock Exchange. Here, this is not the main board. This is a additional board that you have, that we are having to encourage companies to, before listing them in the main board, before that you can list them in this divisory board. So there, what they are asking is, the correct statements would be, right, divisory board is the name given to the main board. I have already given the answer. No, divisory board and main board are not the same. Divisory board and the main board are not the same. They are two different ones. Therefore, this is not a correct statement. Then, to list in the divisory board, a company must have a stated capital of not less than 100 million at the time of listing. So these things you can't guess, you have to memorize it. So these are not information provided in the Companies Act as well. Therefore, you don't have a choice. These things you have to study separately and memorize them accordingly. This is a requirement. So this is correct. Then the other thing is, if you want to check the answers to this question, what you can do is refer to pages 161 and 162 of your textbook. You will be able to figure out the answer, pages 161 and 162. Right. So anyway, this is correct. Then to list in the divisory board, a company must maintain an operating history of at least 2 years immediately preceding the date of its listing application. That is also not correct. To list in the divisory board, a company must ensure that it has a positive net assets figure in its consolidated audited financial statements for the financial year immediately preceding the date of its listing application. This is also correct. So 2 and 4 are correct answers. So that means answer would be B. Roman 2 and Roman 4 are the correct statements here. Right. Then let's look at the next question also. Right. Given below are some of the prescribed forms. Okay, first read the required part, then it's easier and it will, you don't have to spend much time, otherwise you will be wasting your time when you read a question without knowing that what you are supposed to do. First know what you have to do. So first read the required part and then read the information. What do we have to do? The forms relating to the incorporation, the forms relating to the incorporation of a private limited company under the Companies Act would be. Given below are some of the prescribed forms which are filed with the Register of Company. Obviously, application form, that is the registration form that you have to submit at the time of incorporating the company. At the time of incorporating the company, you have to submit it. Notice of issue of shares. Now, that is not a required form at the time of incorporating the company. That is not required. But time to time, whenever you issue shares, there you will have to file Form 6. So, this is not relevant at the time of incorporation. Obviously, at the time of incorporation, you have to appoint directors, you have to appoint the secretary. For each director appointed, you have to get the consent from those directors stating that they are willing to function as the directors of the company. Likewise, you have to get the consent from the company secretary willing to act as the secretary of the company. For that, we have two separate forms. One is Form 18 and the other one is Form 19. These two documents are also essential at the time of incorporation of a company, because a company must have a director, at least one. If it is private, public limited, here they are referring to private limited company. So, you have to have at least one director, and every company shall have a secretary. Therefore, except for Form 6, all the other forms are important when you are registering or incorporating a company. Therefore, Form 1, 18 and 19, Roman 1, Roman 3, Roman 4. So, the answer is D. The answer is D, and I will mention the page number where you can find the answer in the study text. If you refer to page number 30, you will be able to find the answer. Right. Now, let's look at the next question also. Yeah. Question number 4. Which of the following is correct in relation to persons who are considered as Sri Lankan residents under the Foreign Exchange Act? So, again you can see this is not something that is provided to you in the Companies Act. They always ask this kind of questions from the Foreign Exchange Act. Which of the following is correct in relation to persons who are considered as Sri Lankan residents under the Foreign Exchange Act? So, for tax purposes, you know, there is a particular way to determine whether a person should be considered as a Sri Lankan resident or not. Likewise, as per the Foreign Exchange Act number 12 of 2017, we have a particular way to figure out whether a person should be considered as a Sri Lankan resident or not. So, let's look at the answer here. Diplomatic representatives of foreign countries when they arrive in Sri Lanka. That is not correct. They are always considered as the residents of that particular country, and that is why they are not governed by Sri Lankan law. We call it diplomatic immunity, because they are not residents of this country. Foreigners married to Sri Lankan citizens, if they have stayed for more than 3 consecutive years in Sri Lanka, there is nothing such like that. Sri Lankan citizens who have left the country temporarily for not more than 3 months, not correct. Then obviously the companies incorporated in Sri Lanka, including but not limited to registered overseas company. the moment when a company is registered under the Companies Act of Sri Lanka, the company becomes a Sri Lankan resident company. If you want, you can refer to page 183 of the study text to find the answer. So, the answer is D here. If a company is incorporated in Sri Lanka under the Companies Act, certificate of incorporation will be issued by the Registrar of Companies. That means it is a resident company in Sri Lanka, not other situations. So, that's the answer for that question. Right. Then let's look at question number 5. Now, sometimes when you are answering the question, when you read it once, twice, you can't figure out the answer, don't waste your time, go to the next question. Because within 36 minutes, within half an hour, you should complete answering these questions. Even though you complete or not, then you should go to section 2 and section 3. In doing that, you read the question and then you realize you are not sure about the answer. Don't think too much. Don't waste your time there. Go to the next question. When you go to the next question also, if you can't figure out the answer at once, go to the next question. So, from all these 10 questions, you might be able to answer only 5 questions at once. But that 5 questions you will be able to answer very fast without wasting much time, because even though you have not answered the other 5 questions, you have not unnecessarily spent time. The 5 questions you have already answered, at once you knew what the answer was. So, that means within few minutes or few seconds you are in a position to figure out the answer. In such situation, you have answered 5 questions maybe within 5 to 10 minutes. Whatever the 5 questions you have answered within 5 to 10 minutes, then you have another 15-20 minutes to answer the other questions. Because otherwise what happens is, when you are stuck in one question and you start thinking, analyzing again and again, you may not be able to figure out the answer. You are unnecessarily wasting time when you have other questions which you can score very easily. This is a technique that you should use in any other paper, not only in this paper. If you are extremely comfortable with, answer them at once, because then you spend less time, because since you know the answer, when you do that, you have more time to answer the other questions that you have some doubts. So, always do that. Read it once, maximum twice. If you don't know the answer, please go to the next one. Okay. If the name of a company is given as Suvasaviya Limited, it is recognized under the Companies Act number 7, 2007 as, okay, Suvasaviya Limited. This is writing of the name of a company. This is the writing of the name of the company. In the study text, please look at pages 25 to 27. Writing of the name of a company. When you look at the Companies Act, you will be able to decide, there's a particular way to write the name of a company. So, straight away I will explain it. If it is a private limited company, obviously within brackets you have to put the name, put the word private. Have they put the word private here? If it is a private company here, by looking at the name you can say whether it's a private limited company. It's very clear, it's not a private limited company. If it is a PLC, public limited company, that is a company listed in the Colombo Stock Exchange, then the name of the company should end with the letters PLC. Do you have those 3 letters PLC? No. Therefore, it's not going to be a public limited company either. Then, if it is a company limited by guarantee, you can write the name of the company, non-profit making business organization, an association, non-profit making. There, you are permitted to write the name of the company without using the word limited. You can remove, you can write the name of the association without using the word limited. But have they written the name of the company in that manner? Have they done it? No, they have not written the name of the company in that particular manner. They have the word limited. Therefore, of course, it's not a company limited by guarantee as well. Then what this company is? It is a limited company. It's not a private limited company. It's not a listed company. So basically, this is an unlisted company which is not a private limited company. We call them limited companies. We call them limited companies. So this is, I mean, from the name you can figure out whether it's a PLC, private limited company, limited by guarantee, or limited company, neither PLC nor private limited company. Right. Then let's look at question number 6. Okay. Here, which of the following is correct in relation to such documents? Right. Here, every overseas company that establishes a place of business within Sri Lanka must deliver specified documents to the registrar. Yes, that's correct. Which of the following is correct in relation to such documents? Please refer to page number 142 of the textbook where they refer to overseas companies. Right. So page number 142. A list of its shareholders with their full names and addresses. These are overseas companies. Company registered, incorporated outside Sri Lanka, but registered here in Sri Lanka as well. A list of its shareholders with their full names and addresses. That is not required actually. We mainly require a list of its directors containing the details required by the Act to be included in the company's register of directors. So that is one of the requirements. The full name and address of the auditor not required. The name and branches of all domestic banks where it has bank accounts. So obviously, when you look at the answer, the last two cannot be very important information. Last two. Either A or B, because when you are registering a company incorporated overseas, now registering here in Sri Lanka as well, most of the time they will function as a branch or liaison office, something like that. So that's why please refer to page number 142. So mostly they require the people who are responsible for the management of the company more than the shareholders. Therefore, they require the information of the directors containing their details required by the Act to be included in the company register of directors. So the answer is B, second one. B is the answer, right? Okay. Then the next question, 1.7. Which of the following is a salient feature of a company limited by guarantee? Company limited by guarantee. Right. Okay. Now, as I mentioned previously, these are companies that we incorporated with the non-profit motive. There is no intention to generate profits. But you have to obtain approval or license to function as a company limited by guarantee. So anyway, the important features of a company limited by guarantee. Let's say it must issue shares to its owners on the date of incorporation. Remember, there are two types of limited liability. Liability limited by limited liability principle, limited liability. The liability can be limited in two ways. One is limited by shares, the other one is limited by guarantee, limited by shares and limited by guarantee. Obviously, this is a company limited by guarantee. From the name itself, it shows it's not a company limited by shares. It's not a company limited by shares. Therefore, how can you issue shares to the owners? Shares are issued only if you have a profit earning motive. You invest in shares because you want to get a return. But if it is a company limited by guarantee, you have not invested with any profit motive, non-profit. You invest in shares only when you have a profit earning motive. Therefore, the first one cannot be the answer. You never issue shares if you are a company limited by guarantee because they are non-profit making. Its shareholders are entitled to annual dividend. Obviously no, cannot be, because these are non-profit making entities. Therefore, you don't have even actually shareholders. We don't call them shareholders, we call them members. We don't use the word shareholders because there are no shares. We call them members because of that. Why don't you have shareholders? Because we don't issue shares as the main objective is to provide either social welfare or members' welfare, something non-profit. Some objective with a non-profit, the objective has to be non-profit. Non-profit earning motive has to be the main objective. In that case, there cannot be shares issued by these companies. You can't have shareholders and therefore no dividend. Hence, this is also out. Before looking at C, look at D. Such a company's name must at all times end with the word limited. It's the other way around. I explained it a little while ago. If you are a company limited by guarantee, you get the opportunity to write the name of your company without using the word limited. Here it says you should all time end with the word limited. No, you don't have to. Therefore, this is also not correct. So, automatically when you exclude the wrong answers, you automatically get the correct answer. Because when you use the word limited, the general public gets the view that this is a profit earning business organization. To make sure that you give the correct impression to the general public that you don't have any profit earning motive, what we do is we are permitted to use the name of the company without using the word limited. So, C is the answer. The correct answer is C. A minimum of 2 persons must apply to the registrar for the formation. Yes. You can't have single member limited by guarantee entities. If it is a company limited by guarantee, you have to have at least 2 persons, 2 members to form the limited by guarantee company. So, the answer is C. So, by excluding the wrong answers also, you can actually get the correct answer here. Right. Then question number 8. Question number 8. Here, the correct instances would be, let's see, given below are some instances where it may be possible to wind up a company voluntarily. There are 3 modes of winding up. There is a separate chapter allocated in your syllabus, chapter 6. So, if I give you the exact page number in the textbook, please refer to pages 109 and 110 of your textbook. You will be able to find the answer to this question, right. So here there are three modes of winding up. One is voluntary winding up. The other one is company can be wound up by a court order, by order of court. Second one, voluntary winding up. Third one, winding up subject to supervision of court. So those are the three modes of winding up. This in this situation, they are referring to winding up a company voluntarily, voluntary winding up, voluntary winding up, right? Okay. Now, what are the correct statements? There are two types of voluntary winding up: shareholders voluntary winding up and the creditors voluntary winding up, right? Creditors voluntary winding up is possible where the company is insolvent and unable to pay debts in full. That is correct. Voluntary winding up, as I mentioned, you have members voluntary winding up, and you have here the next one, members voluntary winding up. Here creditors voluntary winding up. Creditors voluntary winding up is applicable when the company is insolvent. You know what the meaning of insolvency. That is, the company doesn't have enough assets to settle the liabilities. Basically, the company is bankrupt. So they don't have enough assets to settle the liabilities. Then you should give the priority to the creditors. You should allow them to wind up the company. But if the company is solvent, then the creditors cannot interfere. Then you should allow the members or the shareholders to wind up the company. So the creditors voluntary winding up normally occurs when the company is insolvent and unable to pay its debts in full. So this is a correct answer. Members voluntary winding up is possible where the company is able to pay its debts and confirm as solvent by directors. Correct. Because members voluntary winding up normally takes place when the company has enough assets to settle the liabilities, and the directors of the company make a declaration saying the company is solvent, not bankrupt, we have enough assets to settle our liabilities, then you can proceed with members voluntary winding up. When its shareholders have resolved by special resolution that due to its liabilities it cannot continue its business. Then when its shareholders by majority decision make a declaration of solvency. This is not relevant. I mean, there's nothing like that. Anyway, the shareholders never make a declaration of solvency. That statement is not acceptable due to several reasons. One is, the shareholders never make declaration of solvency. It's done by the directors of the company. The solvency declaration is normally done by the directors. And the other thing is, when it comes to the winding up of a company, normally it's by way of a special resolution, and there's nothing called, here it says ordinary resolution, majority decision. No. It's a serious decision that you make, therefore you need to pass a special resolution. So 4 is out. Third one is actually correct. When any shareholders have resolved by special resolution due to its liabilities it cannot continue, then they can go for voluntary winding up. So the answers, the statements which are correct are Roman 1, 2 and 3. So here the answer is C. C is the answer. 4 anyway it's out. So 1 and 2 definitely correct. Therefore whatever the answer that you pick, 1 and 2 should be there. There are different ways to get the answer even though you are not sure about all the correct answers given here. By looking at some of the answers you can pick the answer actually. 1, 2 definitely should be there. If you look at A, only 1 is there. If you look at B, only 2 is there. If you look at D, 1 is again missing. The only answer where you have both 1 and 2 are basically C, even though you are not sure about Roman 3. And anyway, if you are not sure, what you should do is go to the relevant section that addresses voluntary winding up. And that explains the instances where you can go for voluntary winding up. So from there also you can figure out the answer. But as I mentioned, if you are not sure about the answer at once, then leave it aside. Answer all the questions that you can, first answer the questions that you can answer with confidence, and then use the extra time to answer the questions that you could not answer at the first instance. Right. So then let's look at the next question also. Right, that's the 9th question. Which of the following is correct step under rules? What are these rules? Once an application is made to court for a winding up of a company, once an application, so here this question is also from winding up, but this is another mode of winding up of a company by a court order. The previous one is from voluntary winding up. So this again, this comes under the same chapter, winding up, but to be exact, look at pages 107 and 108 of the textbook to understand the rules pertaining to winding up of a company by a court order. Right. So which of the following is a correct step under these rules? Anyway, is made to court for winding up. Proceedings thereafter will be conducted as per the company's winding up rules 1939. So still we are using these old rules, but don't think too much about it. Which of the following is a correct step under these rules? Right. So here, a copy of every application must be initially sent to the Judicial Service Commission. I mean, there's nothing like that. Judicial Service Commission's job is something else. So they are nothing to do with the acts of company. So that cannot be correct. The petitioner must serve notice of the proposed winding up to all registered. I mean, how practical it is. So that's why I'm saying some of these answers are stupid answers. Definitely answers that are not acceptable under any circumstances. When you are going to wind up your company, do you have to inform all the companies in Sri Lanka? That will be absurd. Therefore, it should be out. All interested parties who intend to appear at the hearing should inform the Judicial Service Commission. Again, they are bringing the Judicial Service Commission. The Judicial Service Commission is for therefore some other purpose, nothing to do with companies. That is for the purpose of judicial service, like the appointment of the magistrates, the district judges, for that purpose only. So, intend to appear at the hearing should inform the Judicial Service Commission of their intention within the stipulated. Obviously out. So, when you exclude all the odd answers, ultimately we are left with one answer that has to be the correct one. If a party intends to oppose the winding up of the company, such party should tender the relevant documents to court within the stipulated time period. Of course, if the company has filed an application to wind up the company by a court order, if there is any party who is not satisfied with that application, should have the right to go before court and say, here, because of these reasons, we want to object to this winding up application. So, any party intends to oppose or object the winding up of the company, that party should be permitted to be a party. That party should be given the opportunity to object by tendering the relevant documents to court within the stipulated time period. Therefore, the answer is D. The correct answer is D. So, we come to the final question. With that, we can complete section 1 and the whole paper discussion, right? So, we have been discussing December 2021 paper, your previous past paper, which includes 3 sections. We have already discussed section 2 and section 3. Now, we are looking at section 1 where you get MCQs, and out of them also we are going to look at the last question. So, the correct powers and duties would be, given below are some powers and duties of the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka. Again, you see these are also not provisions provided in the Companies Act. These come from the Securities Exchange Commission. So, what are the correct powers and duties would be? To issue license to any person to operate as a stockbroker, Yes, basically the Securities Exchange Commission has the power to issue license to stockbrokering companies. Now in Sri Lanka, if you go to the Colombo Stock Exchange website, it gives you the list of stockbrokering companies in Sri Lanka, JB Securities and Asia Capital, Asia Securities. So likewise, there are different stockbrokering companies. So the sole authority to issue these license to stockbrokering companies, basically it's vested with the Securities and Exchange Commission. To conduct arbitration proceedings for investors, no, they don't do arbitration, that is out. To regulate the listing and issue of securities in the Colombo Stock Exchange, obviously they do that. Then, I think only two answers. To function as a statutory financial advisor to CA Sri Lanka, not at all. So as a CA student, you should know that Securities Exchange Commission doesn't provide any financial advice to CA Sri Lanka. It should be actually the other way around, if at all, but that is also not correct. So Securities Exchange Commission is a sole authority to govern and regulate the Colombo Stock Exchange and any other security market, but in Sri Lanka we have only the Colombo Stock Exchange. So all the securities which are listed in the Colombo Stock Exchange, they are governed, regulated, the stock brokering companies are governed, regulated, and even the Colombo Stock Exchange is regulated by the rules issued under the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka. Accordingly, Roman 1 and 3 are the answers. So the answer has to be capital B, and in your textbook please look at pages 153 and 154 to get a better understanding. So with that, I would like to conclude section 1 and the whole paper discussion that we started. So I wish you all the very best, and I hope that this discussion will be useful to some extent when you are preparing yourself for the next paper that you are going to have in July. So with that, I would like to conclude this session. So with that, I would like to conclude this paper discussion. I hope this will be useful when you are preparing yourself for the exam that you are going to have in July. And at the same time, I must thank the Chartered Institute for giving me this wonderful opportunity to discuss the previous paper with all of you, and in particular Aruna, who coordinated the whole session with me, and the tireless effort made by Suraj during this whole session by helping me with the video and all the other things and all these facilities that we have been provided to us. So I would like to thank all of them for helping me to make this a successful session. With that, I would wind up my discussion. May all of you get through your exams. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.